So, sometime back around the year 2000 or so, I made a mistake. And I didn't know really at the time that it was a mistake. But um, at that time, I was searching very hard to find a partner. I'm not sure why I found this to be so important, but I guess it's not unusual. Many people at that age are still very focused on trying to find somebody. Um, at that particular time, I had decided that I would use logic to figure out who this person was going to be. Um, and I figured that having things in common with them was the most important thing. And I figured I could compromise on things like um, attractiveness and uh, um, age, things like that. So um, I didn't really think about it that much more. And then I started conversing with somebody on by like what do you call it, chat on something called kiss.com, and it went on for like a year, and it seemed like we really got along well. I mean, we're both unusual people, and so that unusualness sort of uh, kind of drew us together or whatever. And there were a lot of things that I didn't realize, or I guess I kind of realized them, but I didn't face up to them, and I let them kind of slide by the wayside because I don't know, I was just very motivated, I guess, to get together with somebody. So what happened was, after that year, after we had chatted for that year, and there were cues that I should have paid attention to earlier on, like that when I said certain things about myself, he took them as extremely serious, almost frightening information. Um, and to me, they were just things like, like, for example, if I said, oh, the train wreck of my music career. Okay, well, a long time ago, I had issues that were, very difficult about that. But he seemed to take all of that stuff as though it were currently going on in my mindset still at the time. And I should have paid attention to that to realize that he thought I was a much more delicate, vulnerable kind of person than I actually was. I actually have pretty strong ego, and I've been through a lot, and things have been difficult for me, but I haven't, I don't know, I just wasn't whatever he had started to think that I was. And he was seemed quite convinced. He's sort of a person who had a lot of um, need to be right about things. And so we would get on the internet and uh, argue points with people, sort of, just because he really wanted to make his point and be the one who knew. And so his interactions overall were kind of like that you had to play his game, or he would just sort of like kind of shake his jowls at you and laugh, and then if you were supposed to just laugh along, and it was all, I don't know, it was a very strange kind of manipulation that he probably wasn't even aware that he was doing. But after a period of time, I began to be aware that I actually, it went on for a while. I mean, we met up in person, and we had, this meeting. And well, one other thing I should have said is that a lot of these things I should have noticed early on. When I first heard his voice on the phone, it sounded to me like it reminded me of an old sort of family friend of ours who was known to be very manipulative and um, I don't know, just like not a good person. And so when I heard his voice, I remember being profound, like, well, I shouldn't say profound, I was disappointed. And then I thought maybe at that point, because as soon as I had heard his voice on the phone, I said to myself, this person is going to be very annoying. It just has a very annoying sounding voice. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I'm just not giving him a chance. Maybe I should be more reasonable about it. And so I allowed it to go on. I met up with him, and we had a meeting, and in a way, it was sort of good. We met for Thanksgiving. He stayed for quite a while, and we did seem to get along. We had so many things in common. Most of our interests were in common, so we always had something to go do. Um, and I didn't really begin to understand until I'd been going out with him for several years that it was all kind of a farce in a strange way, because whenever we talked, you could only talk his way, which was to speak in a kind of a Dadaist way of talking, and I began to realize that really there wasn't anything else there, that he was just talking, like he just was determined to make up stories about uh, two birds. And I guess because I had two birds, but these birds were like other magical birds that had these whatevers. I don't know. He made up these stories. And so, I went along with it because I can kind of roll with that kind of thing. And that's kind of the thing that I've noticed about my personality, is that there's some people who are sort of almost impossible for other people to get along with, but I will get along with them in a certain way. It's not that I'm really going to be able to tolerate them over a long period of time, but I kind of know a little bit about where they're coming from, and so I roll with it. And I guess what happened was I just kind of kept rolling along, and other things happened along the way. We I He was very concerned about a health issue that I had, which was, um, I was convinced that I never had cancer, and I thought the doctor was absolutely bogus, and that ended up to be the truth. But I guess in his mind, it was more of an issue that, he, I don't know, he took the issue of my cancer thing that didn't really exist, um, and was proven later to not exist, um, quite seriously, in a way that didn't have anything to do with how I was sort of presenting myself. And then I found myself sort of adjusting into his thing, sort of like playing the role that he seemed to feel that I should be playing. And I don't know, as things went on, I just started noticing what really began to bother me the most was this incredible hypocrisy that I realized that I was playing out. And I was being a hypocrite, because things would happen, and maybe this is how other people's relationships are all the time, and they don't really think twice about it or something. But to me, it's okay. Some of these things that I have to say are not very pleasant, but one time we were on a bus, and we were going to uh, dinner or back from dinner somewhere in a place that was hard to reach. So we were on this bus, and this drunk, bowed-legged man got on the bus, and the person that I had been seeing was sitting with me, and for whatever reason, every time something showed up outside the window, he would announce, like, sign or store, or he would just name every object that was outside it. It was one of these Dada's type of things that he liked to do. And it was annoying. I could see how annoying that could be to like everybody on the bus. And that was kind of the main sound that was going on, was this naming. Um, and when I thought about it, I realized that he did give off this vibe that was just a vibe of just being extremely annoying, and the sound of the voice and everything. So I was realizing the extent of my hypocrisy, but then the bowed-legged guy came up to me and he said, "I'm going to throw you off this bus." And I remember at that point sort of pretending to be sort of horrified, and um, like that it wasn't appropriate that the man had done this. And of course, it wasn't appropriate that the man had done it, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking, yeah, you are really annoying, and I would kind of like to throw you off this bus myself. And I hid this entirely. Like, I just didn't even acknowledge, maybe even to myself, that I was annoyed by this. So, and keep in mind, like, there's no way to discuss any of this stuff because there was the laugh and shake your jowls, and everything turns into a big joke. There's no way of discussing anything. There's no way of having a serious discussion whatsoever because either it was turned into a joke or he had to win it and like make some kind of point about something. And he had to identify, like he's he'll just say things like, well, I don't think you're this or whatever. It's like, whatever. I don't know. It's just, okay. So then, I mean, I'm sorry this is going on and getting kind of long and horrible, but finally, I'm not even going to go into any more of the details, but finally, after a while, I realized that I was being such a hypocrite by continuing to go along with this that I had to stop. And the thing that really kind of got me was when he said, all of us, we were standing at a tea stop, and in all of this time we had never been what you would call intimate. Okay, and all of a sudden he announces, now we can start having sex. And we were standing at a tea stop, and at this point I was growing to the point where I'd been almost ready to just like quit this, but I thought, well, it doesn't matter. I only see him once in a while. He's not from this town. I'll put up with it or whatever. And then all of a sudden he said that, and I was just like horrified. And at that point I said to myself, I've absolutely got to get out of this. So I did. But I really did not want to have to explain myself. I mean, to have to explain the details of things like that I have just discussed, it really, I don't like to say stuff like that to people. I don't like to, and especially if I had tried to talk to him about it, he would have tried to convince me otherwise because that was his MO, his modus operandi. So no matter what you say, no matter what somebody says, he's going to have some answer, and he's going to try to draw you into some kind of a thing. So what happened after that was, now say we're talking about this period of the interaction going from 2000 to 2005 approximately. Okay, so he just kept writing and emailing and writing and emailing and writing and emailing. And then finally, I just stopped all of it. I blocked it. But it continued, and he kept sending things. And, in fact, I mean, this is now 2016, and it has continued to this day. And he seems to feel that he's very romantic and that this is what his thing is. And what it is for me is like I've been, it makes me feel a great deal of guilt. I would never want to go back to knowing him. I feel badly about what I had to do and how I let myself continue in something where I was such a hypocrite. I really make an effort not to do things like that anymore because I now understand myself a lot better about the nature of that. But I have bad dreams because mixed in with the letters and the gifts and things are little barbs that are tried to design to make me feel bad about things, and then I guess that's supposed to make me want to come crawling back to him or something. It's like, so the one hand he's saying, well, oh, I miss you so much, and then he says things like, you're getting old and ugly. It's like, okay, people get old, we get ugly, and I accept that and whatever, but it's clear that his motive is to try to undermine me in some way, to make me vulnerable to his whatever it is that he's trying to do. I guess it's kind of like a gaslighting, maybe, I'm not sure, but It's a very ugly psychological strategy that nobody should want to be around whatsoever, and people who remain around it are being abused. So, and like he sent me a book one time that had something to do about a lady who was tattooed from head to foot, and then somebody threw acid on her. Okay, so I don't know. Quite frankly, I got a bit scared. And I don't think that this person would go that far to do something really horrendous. But it surely occurred to me, and I had some actual nightmares about being like followed by this person or chased by this person. It's kind of awful. Every once in a while, I have a nightmare like that. Not often, but they pop up. And the I guess what he has thought is romantic attentions by all of this verbiage coming towards me in emails and things, which I've blocked, but then somehow he found some way to like get around my block. But then I read them because I'm concerned that I'm maybe going to be, I don't know, like he's going to show up or something. Maybe I can get a clue of what's going to happen from it. Or so then I read it and then I get just really pissed off because there's more presumptuous talk about who I should be and who I'm not and what I should have done and how I should have treated him and how I was so awful. But oh, he's just so in love. You know, well, the fact is if somebody treats you like I treated him, that person should understand that the respect of the situation demands that they remove themselves, that they don't go with, that they do not have to be a part of your life, and their own sense of self-worth should cause them to understand that. I've had people reject me, and it's okay. I am not going to follow them anymore. I've had crushes where, you know, I felt really, really like, oh, I've got to have this person. But, you know, it's just not true. It's just not true, you know, and you get over it, and then you realize, oh my goodness, why was I so into that person? It really wasn't that big of a deal. So, so this onslaught of stuff, you know, like gifts being sent and emails and long emails, it almost feels to me like what are those movies where like a bunch of evil children come out of a crumb horn or something, you know, like this, the horde coming out, you know, I feel like I'm being, I don't know, like something is there that I just can't get rid of, and it's, you know, as long as I don't hear from him, I'm fine. But then all of a sudden I get these, and you know, I get guilty again. I feel like, oh my God, I really did, you know, something bad. I, you know, somehow destroyed this person's sense of self-worth. But it's not really true. He should have his own sense of self-worth, independent from me. It doesn't. It's psychologically, you cannot depend on another person for your sense of self-worth. So I don't know. I just it's something where I just wish it would go away. Like I think it should go away. It's like somebody should not continue to do this to me. It's like a form of stalking. It's kind of a minor stalking, and it's kind of frightening, and I just don't think it's appropriate. And I really wish he would stop. And I do know that he has watched my videos, and I hope that he watches this because, you know, I just don't have any more to say about it except, you know, well, I guess I should say I'm sorry for any difficulty that I caused. I understand myself a lot more now, and I understand that I was being a hypocrite, and you know, he really should not interfere with my life anymore past this point. And I hope that he finally comes to some kind of resolution and understands that. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye-bye for now.